Welcome back. We're here with our old friends from Liberty Gears. And Craig, I tell you what, you really are leading the way. You never sit and rest on your laurels. And in front of me here, evidence of that, your Extreme T. A lot of success with this year. Tell us a little bit about it.
It's a transmission that we designed. The T part of it is for torque converter drive unit, and it does bolt behind a torque converter drive unit. Since it's a manual transmission and with a torque converter in front of it, you have to generate fluid pressure somehow, so that's why the torque converter drive unit generates the fluid pressure, acts as the tranny brake, so we can now put our manual transmission behind a torque converter. Now you get the best of both worlds. A torque converter's always been efficient in the first 60, 70, some people say only 40 feet of a racetrack, but it is very efficient in that area of a racetrack. From there, it's not necessarily as efficient. You'd rather not have it, so people are going to what's called lockup torque converters. And a lockup converter, the downfall to a lockup is when it locks up, you no longer have that slippage. You don't have enough gears to possibly make the gear changes for the rest of the run. And now you put our 4-speed transmission behind that same lockup torque converter. Now you can get very short drops on the gear changes. And this is actually a 4-speed. We actually have a 5-speed. We even have a 6-speed for the import cars. So we have the versatility here to give you anything you need depending on your horsepower. But the one we are looking at here is a 4-speed. This particular unit, again, bolts to a torque converter drive unit, uses a lockup converter, doesn't have to. You can run a standard converter with it if you want to. It's a regular slip converter. You do not have to run a lockup. You can run it virtually as tight as you want. The versatility we give you with the 4 speeds and unbelievable amounts of ratios. You can split hairs on ratios. If you want a 156 first gear, a 157, a 158, we don't care. Just tell us what you want. We will tune it to anything you want. I could show you one of the ratio charts. It's amazing what you can do with the versatility of this transmission. What we've seen, and we've only built this particular one, there's only 5 prototypes out there that we actually built. One of them's here at the show, there's 3 of them out in the field, and then we have 1 more back at the shop, so there's really only 5 of these. And we bolted one in a car recently, Dale Collins Jr., 10.5 car, 10.5 Outlaw car, took out his Rossler, put in our 4-speed with a lockup unit, and picked up 1200s in the 8th mile. Wow. There's not many 1200s gains left out there in Outlaw 10.5 or in drag radial. We do believe this transmission is simply going to take over Outlaw 10.5, drag radial, Pro Mod. There's no reason to run anything else that's out there. There's nothing can compete with this.
Picking up that much is certainly significant, and I can see why you say this is really going to take over the industry. We do have versatility as well. In front of us here, a manual transmission, and you can accommodate that as well.
This is the version of the 4-speed we were looking at earlier. This is to show that it's also available in a 3-speed configuration. You can get it with a tail housing. You've got a manual shifter, not just air shifted like we were showing earlier. So it's, again, back to versatility. Yes, we can configure this in almost anything you want, even something custom. You want a specific length, we'll make a specific length. Billet tail housing if that's what you want. We're not going to cast up a single tail housing, but we will make a billet one with an odd leg. We've had people that simply don't want to change the drive shaft in their car. We will make a custom output so that they don't have to, because you got to face it, some of these cars are very expensive just from the tube back. Tube and drive shaft can add up to a considerable amount of money. So we'll do whatever it takes to make a customer happy. Over and above that, the ratios that are available for this thing, combined with whatever we're willing to do to make it work for you, it's just simply unmatched anywhere in the industry.
And it's kind of been a journey as well. There's been kind of one step up to what we're seeing here in front of us. Can we go take a look at that evolution?
Absolutely. Let's step right over here.
So Craig, what is it we're looking at right here in front of us?
This is our standard Pro Stock style 5-speed transmission. Virtually, well, not virtually, absolutely every NHRA Pro Stock car out there runs this trans. Originally they ran a different planetary style transmission way back in the 80s and into the early 90s. As this transmission took over, it's so much more efficient that it just doesn't make sense to run a planetary style transmission. Basic rule of thumb back then was if the Liberty transmission if you can't brake it, if you don't have enough horsepower to brake it, it's simply the fastest transmission out there. And so what we've done over the years is simply tried to make it stronger and stronger to get the higher classes. So this being NHRA Pro Stock and Competition Eliminator, They've been running this trans for over 10 years now, and in 10 years we haven't had any breakage. This transmission simply, it's a beast. It just runs and runs and runs, zero failures. You may wear out a slider periodically or something like that, but just simply no breakage. So thinking back that in 10 years of zero breakage, maybe we can make something a little more efficient and a little lighter for them, for the Pro Stock boys. So we took that mentality and designed this transmission over here. What we have here is the ultra lightweight version of the same Pro Stock transmission. We've narrowed up the gears, we've put large windows through the gears. The very unique part of this transmission is the main shaft gears actually float. Being with the dual counter shaft setup, the main shaft gears they don't want to be anywhere else except for where they're at. They're literally floating between the clusters. There's no bearings on the main shaft. So they're in there free floating. So what we were able to do is get rid of a lot of the extra mass down in the gear set and replace it with just simple aluminum. So we removed steel, put aluminum, narrowed things up. We did go to different tooth profiles to handle this so that we can possibly get by with the narrower gears, and now this is what we have designed for Pro Stock, trying to get them a more efficient package.
And this is holding up as well in the field.
It holds up very well. We've had these out there for over 2 years now, once again, zero failures. But going back to that, the whole principle, whereas if you can't break a Liberty, it's simply the best transmission to run, now you start looking at the Pro Mod classes. So what we did was we stepped over to this gearbox here. Our ratio chart for that is absolutely, it's almost baffling. There's just too many ratios available for a Pro Stock car. It's almost confusing, but those guys do like to nitpick ratios, so we give them what they want. You come over here where these guys have, say, 3,000 plus horsepower in a Pro Mod car, they don't need those ratios. So what we did to make this transmission stronger is we narrowed the ratio chart down to, there's much less teeth in contact, so a much wider base tooth. We do change materials. We don't necessarily disclose what materials we change on which components. We do keep a lot of that stuff confidential, but again, it's designed for 3,000, maybe 3,500 horsepower. The problem we had with this transmission is people want to run a torque converter these days, not necessarily a clutch. It wasn't a huge problem. We put an adapter plate and a coupler and two small male inputs, the male output from the drive unit, male input to mine, with a coupler between them. For whatever reason, the racer didn't seem to like that coupler and adapter. So what we did is we figured, okay, let's make a purpose-built unit for a torque converter drive unit. So now we step over here. This is much more purpose-built. This was back to the unit we were looking at just a little bit ago, and our new prototype. So what it's got is we put an extra bulkhead up front, so we're not relying on input shaft support for a clutch, because a torque converter drive unit doesn't give us any support. We were able to make a stronger reverse. One of the problems we were having when you put a torque converter drive there, it's hard to get a manual transmission in and out of reverse. It's a little bit tricky, so we did make a stronger reverse for it. Again, we changed materials again, changed tooth profiles again. Now we're up to, we've put over 4,500 horsepower in front of this transmission with a lockup converter with absolutely zero problems.
Wow.
Now there are only 5 of these made. There's only 5 of them made in a 4-speed configuration. We've had them out in 2 and 3-speed now for over 2 years. Once again, zero failures, zero problems with it. We're looking forward. We're actually designing a 5-speed right now and a 6-speed for the import market with a torque converter drive unit in front of it. We're very excited about what the future is going to bring for us.
Well, I think the entire industry is, always leading the way with innovation and always allowing the end user to actually kind of tune it to their needs. With that said, right now, Craig, I know you have to have the attention, all of our viewers out there, all the racers that want to be able to have that tunability and that dependability. What's the best way for them to learn more about Liberty's gear?
You can go to our website. Feel free to call. We're constantly changing right now because of the new, like I say, the prototypes. We're changing the website constantly, trying to keep it updated. But really, you can give us a call anytime, send an email. However, you know how today is, depending on what age gap you come from,
sure,
or what generation you come from, you may choose internet, people like to text, whatever you want to do. We're easy to find.
Yeah. Easy enough. Craig, thanks for being on again.
Thank you.